So it's a pleasure to be here with you today and to take you through this presentation, which has a very interesting title about positioning yourself in the local and global labor markets. So that's what we want to cover today. And just to tell you, 3 green apples, we have nothing to do with fruits, or we're not a farm. We're actually an HR consultancy company. And I try and do 2 things. One is to transform businesses through people. Because I think people, and as much as it's said, and it's very cliche, are the most important asset in an organization. If you look at any organization around the world, the technology is more or less the same, the money is from the same sources. What makes the difference is the people. The other thing, having worked for 4 very large global organizations, is to keep things simple. And they say usually simplicity is much more difficult to attain than complexity. But if you keep things simple, I think it gets you more fulfilled. So those are the things we do. Why are we called 3 green apples? This is something I'm always asked. So those are the original apples. Very soon I'll stop showing this picture because now the oldest is about 15 and my little girl is 6 years old. But this is the reason why the company exists and why I work, is for these 3 green apples. So, coming back to what you want to know, positioning yourself in the local and global labor market. I want to cover it from 3 perspectives. First, there's the bad. Then there'll be the good. Then you have to make the choices. So usually people talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think a certain generation will know about that. But I struggled with, should we give the bad news first or the good news first? And I thought, let's cover the good, the bad. And by the way, I will send Jane this presentation, minus a few pictures of the apples, so that you can have it on record for yourselves, so that you can make notes of the things that are particularly important to you. So we start with the bad. And some of the things that are going on in the world today. Is this your generation? This was on the cover of The Economist, I think this week or last week's Economist. Generation jobless. From 2009, when the world went into a financial crisis and an economic downturn, of course, what happens in an economic downturn? Employment follows soon after. And from 2009, the world has been trying to recover and get back on their feet. We don't have as many jobs as we had probably in 2008 if you look at the major world economies. So this is a question. If you look at the Kenyan statistics, we are graduating thousands and thousands of students every year. And where is this generation going? So are you generation jobless? This is also by a survey that was found in The Economist about idle hands. People who are unemployed around the world, and also people who are inactive around the world, so not gainfully employed in any way. And you can see where Sub-Saharan Africa, at the time this survey was taken, 21% of the youth unemployed. One more piece of bad news before you all cry, walk out the door, and then we'll come to the good news. Generation jobless. This was an online survey that was taken of 18 to 29-year-olds. About 21,000 people participated. And these are the kind of things that they said. So, 33% of those graduating from university found full-time job in their field of graduation. out of 88% who responded to that question. Of the 37% that responded to this question, they say their current job pays them enough to live in their own place comfortably. But this number is 64% for people older than them. And then 19% answer this question are in a financial position to purchase a house or a condominium or an apartment. This is an American survey. Yet between 45 and 59-year-olds, this percentage is at 65%. So that's the global picture about employment. That there's a high rate of unemployment around the world. Yet you want to join the global labor force or even just the local labor force. But on the flip side, and this is where it gets very interesting, this is a survey done by my colleague's organization, James. This is from PwC. They do a global CEO survey. And one of the things that CEOs are saying in this survey about talent is that there are skills shortages. CEOs globally are saying they can't find people. So on one hand, we've sat and said we have a whole generation jobless, and there's high unemployment amongst the youth, and yet in the very same breath thereafter we're saying we can't find people to work for us. And this survey by PricewaterhouseCoopers is global. So this is a global survey, again mirroring what the economists are talking about on the global platform. This is the other thing that they've said. Again, this is the PwC 15th Annual Global CEO Survey. What are they pushing governments to do? And you can see item 2 is to create and foster a skilled workforce. So CEOs globally are saying to their governments, can you please give us a skilled workforce? Does this make sense to you? Yeah? It does? It does not. Yeah? It doesn't make sense. Because if we go on and look at another organization, Hay, which is a global recruiter, and they're talking about top 10 global skills shortages. They do an assessment of critical skills imbalances. And they are saying, we have a global skills crisis. We don't have skilled people to employ. Another source. Again, you can see all this is current data, 2013. This is from IBR. And they're saying, why is your business finding it difficult to recruit skilled workers? Again, a global survey. And the first thing they say is about a shortage of specific or technical skill. Second reason, lack of appropriate work experience. Third reason, lack of required qualifications. The top 3 things are things that we can all address and are addressable. And so on one hand, we have the world saying there's generation jobless. On the other hand, we have businesses that drive global economies saying we can't find people. So what is all this about? Again, going back to Hayes and the top 10 global skills shortages that they have recorded, and this was updated in February 2013. So, skills, soft skills. And please note, the soft skills come before the technical skills. So if you're looking to join the global or the local workforce, this is an indication that the soft skills take priority over your technical skills. Not that they're not important, but just one is more, makes a larger difference than the others. And I want to spend a little bit of time here talking about languages. And I'm going to ask some questions, and I want to hear a few answers if you don't mind. So when we say languages, what languages are we fluent in? Fluent in speaking. Anyone? Apart from the front row. Anyone? What languages are you fluent in speaking? Sheng. And then? Any other language? What language are your lectures carried out in? English. What language do you normally have conversations in? Sheng. Or Kiswahili. Language, the number one issue. If you can't communicate, how are you going to work? A lot of people see this as a very, we are old-fashioned and insisting on old-fashioned things, and probably because we can't speak Sheng. And that's a fair comment. But the business world is still conducted in English. And the business world, when the business world will change? When China will dominate this world, is when the Chinese speak English. At the moment, what happened is when the Chinese economy started growing, is a lot of the people the pioneers to go and do business in China started learning Mandarin, which is the Chinese official language, so that they could go there and do business there. The Chinese are now coming out of China to do business in the world, and they have to learn English. And at the moment, the percentage of Chinese nationals who speak English is not as high. It's not predominant. But can you imagine when 1/6 of the world's population can speak this business language, how much more competitive will it be to join this global workforce? Just think about that. So language, you have the advantage that English remains one of the national languages of Kenya, Kiswahili the second. If you speak to Tanzanians, what we call Kiswahili could be tentative. But we have those advantages. English, the global business language. Kiswahili, a growing regional business language. You have the advantage. You have both as your national language. Communications. Language then just flows into communication, the ability to communicate. And what happens in intergenerational is the inability to know which type of communication is appropriate in which situation. So, if you speak Sheng, it's great. It's a language you can communicate, you can create relationships, but they have to be in a particular portion of the organization or in your school life. If you text, the language in which you text is not appropriate for email. It's not appropriate for writing letters. It's not appropriate to put on a CV. But there seems to be this disconnect, thinking text, as long as I SMS, see you later, see you. I don't even know how you spell later. Anyone? L? L? Sorry? L? 8A. Yeah, oh my goodness. Cannot appear on anything apart from a text that's going to a friend. What happens is, and I'll share some experiences of colleagues in financial institutions. You join, you're in the financial institution, you're opening accounts, and you text a client. Your account is open. In a language that client has no idea what you're saying, but they see that this is a text that has come from, let's say, Standard Chartered Bank or Citibank, where I work. And the disconnect for us is that Citibank, UA, account, God knows, AC something, it completely creates a disconnect. So that ability to communicate is critical. The team management, leadership, obviously something that you grow into. I'll tell you something about leadership. I would generalize and say I'm talking to the instant generation. The generation that it's pesa pop. Microwave generation. We want to be the CEO in 3 years. True? Sort of? Yes. Let me ask you a question. When you join Standard 1, could you do your KCSE? It's KCSE that they do, huh? Yeah, it's Standard 8. KCPE. Oh, wonderful. So we just did CPE without the K. Tells you how old I am. But in Standard 1, could you do KCPE? You needed 8 years of preparation to sit that exam. Then you go to high school. In Form 1, can you sit KCSE? Again, you need 4 years of preparation to get to that level of knowledge, experience, to sit those exams. So why is it when you come into the workplace, you want to be a strategic manager on your 3rd week? It doesn't happen like that. You need time to be prepared to grow into these positions. So being the leader of a function or an activity in university gives you an idea about how to be a leader. But when you come to large organizations, it takes time to hone those skills. So don't be too quick in trying to say, well, I don't want to. Take my time, pay my dues, learn the way. Just remember, year 1 to year 8, Form 1 to Form 4, these things take time. Of course, being organized, one of the things I was very impressed with accountants, the School of Accountancy, is timekeeping. Because in Africa, we are known for African time. Yeah? But being organized. Again, it's a global standard, timekeeping. So, Dr. McPhee is British or Scottish or Scottish. Very punctual. Their understanding of time and our understanding of time, completely different. So if you want global careers, it's important to understand the values that other organizations put on things like that. Now, hard skills. What are the hard skills that are missing? Again, updated 15th March, 2013. Financial and budgetary fits straight into what most of you would be learning if you're in the School of Accountancy. And this is very interesting. I had the opportunity of working with somebody who had done BCom Finance. Yeah, BCom Finance. 4 years of study in the theory principles of finance. And I asked them, can you prepare financial statements? They're like, no. Can you guys prepare financial statements? Those of you doing BCom Finance? Yes? So you walk into a company, end of month 1, you can prepare their financial statements. Yes? Oh, the front row. You guys have done it for long enough. Because as employers, we look and we wonder, then what were you doing for 4 years? And yes, we understand you have the knowledge of it, but we are not employing you for the knowledge. We're employing you for actually doing it. And this is where some of these disconnects come in. Yeah. IT, I understand there are newer languages than this, but these are some of the programming languages that are in a shortage around the world. So again, I understand there's a IT program that runs here. So if you're good at these skills, and we'll define the difference between education and skills. Green skills are growing, procurement, so the whole area around supply chain. How do we source product? How do we bring it, how do we transport it, bring it in, store it, convert it into the final product and ship it out to clients? All that, the supply chain process. Skills shortage. Because we are a global village. If you look at how they manufacture cars in Japan, they manufacture, the just-in-time manufacturing requires precision in terms of if this part is coming from Germany, that one from Brazil, this one from Iceland, this one from next door down the road, they must come at exactly the right time for them to be sequentially arranged for this production to go on. That method of production will come to Africa. So it's another growing area. Research and development. I heard on radio this morning they were asking about pomegranates, kukumanga, and that product can lower your blood pressure. But the discovery was done somewhere else. Why wasn't it done here? Baobab, Mabuyu, you know them? being exported to Europe because they have antioxidants that are believed could cure cancer. We've lived with them for how long? Did we know? Huge area. We are still a largely natural environment. I read earlier in, I think in February, March, about a person who has developed a type of apple. He found a fruit in the Aberdare forest, and he's grafted it and cultivated it for 20 years. It has been registered with CARI, with KEBS, with everybody. It's been trademarked under his trademark. He now exports 100,000 seedlings he was sending to Rwanda at 1,000 shillings per seedling. That's one order. Research and development. So it doesn't always necessarily have to happen in a lab. This is one farmer who just had a passion for some fruit he found and thought it was very nice, and he needed to commercialize it. So the closest thing he could find was an apple. And of course, healthcare. We're living longer. So, the best news is that this is where it's all happening, Africa. So in as much as you want to go global, Africa is the place that everything is happening. If you look at the growth in the economies, the fastest growth recorded last year was on this continent. We outpaced growth in every other part of the world. So Africa is rising. And these are from some years back, but Africa is rising. This is where the opportunity is. And if you look at just Kenya itself, we have moved from a very centralized form of government. Everything happened in Nairobi. People migrated to Nairobi to find jobs. If you are clever, you will migrate back to those counties within the next 3 years and find all the opportunities that are arising, because that's where everything is going to be pushed back down to. So, what should you have? Should have technical, professional, entrepreneurial knowledge and experience. Particularly entrepreneurial. It doesn't matter if you want to be a lawyer, be an entrepreneuring lawyer. Understand that there's business behind law. Understand that there's business behind botany. Understand that there's business behind education. The entrepreneurial skill will probably be the most distinguishing professional skill you can have. And then emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a man called Daniel Goldman, who has been pioneering who pioneered this work, brought it to the center stage. And emotional intelligence is how to be with people and be with yourself and make the most of yourself. Talking about things like being self-aware. Who am I? What can I do? What are my values? Dr. McPhee talked about ethics. In this country, a lot of the things that are going wrong is because of a lack of ethics. So what values do you have? Self-regulation. Are you disciplined? Motivation is doing it for your own sake, not because there's a paycheck, not because there's somebody standing with a whip behind you. That is to be motivated. Ask yourself, and the people who really get the most out of their careers are the people who would do it even if they were not getting paid. That's when you know you enjoy your career. You would still do it even if you weren't getting paid. But understandably, there are economics. We live in an economic world. You need to get paid. You need to pay some bills. Empathy, the ability to understand, relate with other people. And then your social skills, your ability to work with other people. And if you want a global career, with diverse people, with diverse opinions, with diverse cultures, with diverse appreciations. Think about food. Food is something that unites us all because we can eat. So the French like to eat snails, and they call it escargot. Sounds very nice. Escargot. It's snails. Would you eat a snail? Seeing that it's the rainy season and there have been a lot of snails, would you eat a snail? Yeah, but you just have to appreciate that's their culture. Yeah? Dogs are a delicacy in some part of the world. Monkey meat is a delicacy in some part of the world. The ability to build social skills. And this is how they all work together. Because they do add value to each other. All coming down to ability to have influence. Your ability to have influence. A lot of people talk about leadership development and we have to create leaders. And I started hearing about this maybe in the 90s, about the 1990s, about we have to create leaders and there has to be leadership development. And I thought, where did this whole leadership stuff come from? Anyone know? A gentleman called Peter Drucker wrote about the change in managing people. And guess when he wrote about it? 1950s. 40 years later, 50 years later, 60 years later is when we're actually coming up with these ideas that we need to have leadership. Again, the ability to research. But this is what happens when you have emotional intelligence, and this is some research that there was done. 90% of top performers have high EQ, not IQ, EQ. EQ has been said to be responsible for 58% of your performance on the job. And people with high EQ, this is in the United States, earn approximately $30,000 more than counterparts doing the same job with a lower EQ. So EQ really does make the difference. And the good thing is about EQ, it is global. The ability to socialize, the ability to have discipline, the ability to be self-aware is a global phenomenon. It's not a Kenyan thing, it's not a Chinese thing, it's not something out of the... It's global. So what do we get, or what do we have? That's what we should have. What do we have? We have a degree. Yes? That's what we're aiming for. We're in a university, we'll come away with a degree. With education. And the difference between education and learning is that education, the knowledge, the skills, the values, the attitude, is gained through teaching. You are told. Learning is I experience. And we focus way too much in this market on education and not enough on learning. Learn every day. The greatest thing is that Dr. McPhee walked in here and said he is still learning. Despite having lectured from the 1960s, he is still learning. Try and learn one new thing every day. And what's the difference? Knowledge. Learning concepts, principles, and information about a particular subject. Well and good. The skill is the ability to use knowledge in context. So do we have knowledgeable people? Yes. Do we graduate knowledgeable people? Yes. Why do we know that you're knowledgeable? Because you pass exams. But are you skilled? Remember, what is missing in the world is lack of skills, not lack of knowledge. It is lack of skill, the ability to use knowledge in context. That is what is missing. And abilities, skills are an amalgamation of your abilities. So, the disconnect is we have a lot of graduates who know enough to pass exams, rather than graduates who learn enough to do a job. That's the disconnect. That's why the economists can talk about generation jobless, and CEOs can talk about we have no skills. We have a skills shortage. And that's the bridge that you need to cross over. It's not about exams, and unfortunately one of the things, our education system is very geared towards passing of exams. not how do we use education as a means to an end. So what could we do around that? One, be global. Be a global and local citizen of this world. It's a term that came up in marketing, where global brands have gone from being very global and having global campaigns to saying, actually, we need to be very global in our brand, but very local in our application. So if you remember the ad that Coca-Cola had on Papa Shirandula, and global ad. It was done in 5 different continents, but very local, because the application of the characters was local, so we could relate. And that's where global came from. So the first thing, please have skill. Not knowledge. Use the knowledge to create skill. Be skilled in the field of study, in the field of career that you want to have. So have that skill. Knowledge is not enough. Education is not enough. You have to have the skill. Then know the world. And start here. Start at home. And what do I mean when I say start at home? If I ask you a couple of questions, where is Gamia 1? Which county is Gamia 1 located in? Huh? You see, it's a front row. Okay, the front row is banned from answering any questions. But if you want to go into energy, petroleum, this is going to be a huge industry in the future of Kenya. The future that you want to have jobs in. What is LAPSET? It's called LAPSET. LAPSET. What is LAPSET? Anyone know? Yes, it's a project. Ethiopian-Kenya corridor. To access the Ethiopian markets, but where else does it go? South Sudan. Where else does it go? Lamu. Yeah, starts there. Where else? Where else? Think global. What is on the other side of Lamu, on the other side of the African continent? That's where this project is going. Any of you know the Panama Canal? Heard of the Panama Canal? What does the Panama Canal do? It cuts the American continent into half at its narrowest point, so that ships don't have to go from the United States down through South America up to the other side. They now just go through the middle of the continent. What will LAPSET do? Cut Africa into half. Why must goods go from Mombasa to Durban, around to the other side, up through Angola, to go to DRC, to Cameroon? We just go across the middle. These are the opportunities that are there. So, in as much as we all want to look out there, there's opportunity right here. We just have to know about it. Have a global brand. Unfortunately, Sheng is not a global brand. It's local because, in fact, it's so local because I understand, and I'm willing to be corrected. There are pockets of Sheng depending on where you live and who you hang out with. So it's not even local Kenyan, it's just a local to your locality brand. And it's good. But what's your global brand? And let's tell you what we do when you send us your CV is we go on to things like Facebook and we see, who is this person? Yeah, the CV looks wonderful. Let's see them in real life. So what do we see on your Facebook brand? On your social media brand? What do we see when you send us your CV? Spelling mistakes. Why are they spelling mistakes in the year 2013 when every single word processing application has spell check? And not even spell check, grammar check. Why? And then let's see your physical brand. how do you look? How do you present yourself? One thing I was told when I was in university in terms of career counseling, you buy one suit, preferably a dark suit. For ladies, it could be a trouser suit or a skirt suit, and you wear that suit to interviews, to weddings, and to funerals. That's it. Until you get that job that you want. Okay, funerals doesn't quite apply, it's a different context because it'll be as dusty as hell. But in terms of image, how do you sell yourself? And you sell yourself every day. Today you have two very large recruiting companies represented here. You have the NAS Group, you have PwC. How do you look? How have you presented yourself? Let me ask you another question. I always ask this to students when I speak to them. How many people brought CVs? How many global companies came into Kenya in the last 2 years, headquartered here? They either put their Africa headquarters into Kenya or their regional headquarters into Kenya. Anybody know? Last 2 years? Any companies we heard of coming in? Yes, sir. General Electric. Yeah. GE. Huge global brand, headquartered here in Kenya. And this is their Africa headquarters. Anyone else? So why would you go to America to find General Electric when General Electric has come to Kenya to find you? Samsung recently set up in the last 2 years, have set headquarters here. Yeah? Microsoft have expanded and this has become their East Africa business hub. Hopefully will become their Africa business hub. They still have continental presence. Large organizations are coming to set themselves here. How many UN agencies are based here? Headquartered here? So why go to New York to meet the UN when the UN is here at your doorstep? This is what I mean. Network locally and internationally. And if you do want to go global, learn a language. How many European languages are spoken on this continent? English? French? Portuguese? And in fact, the highest growth in labor in Portugal has been employment in Mozambique because they speak Portuguese. So those are some of the things that you can do. And then travel. Get out of Nairobi. Go and see Gamia 1. You might discover opportunities along the way. Go and see Lamu. Go and find out what Isiolo is becoming the hub for northern Kenya. All these opportunities are there. Thank you for your time. That's where I'll end my presentation. And I think hand back to Anthony. Thank you very much.